You're listening to the Bombad Generals.
General? Oh.
Hello, welcome to the Bombad Generals. It's Seth. I'm here with
Matt, the only other co-host the Bombad Generals have ever had in our history.
Yes, it's only been Matt and Seth, no other person, just us. And so we're grateful that you're listening. I hope you're having a splendid Friday or whatever day you're watching this on. But today we got a pretty spicy episode. We're going to just touch base a little bit on some recent rules changes, form rulings that were announced, and then also we're going to talk about a little bit about local versus bigger global metas out there in play right now. But first, let's touch base on this new rule change that happened.
We're about a week late on it, but better late than never. It is a substantial change. We don't want to overhype it, but it's pretty interesting.
Yes. So this is on the form rulings for Star Wars Legion on the Atomic Mask forum page. The question goes, hello there. In the claim section, page 39, it says, after a unit performs any movement, that unit's controlling player may pick up any claimed objective tokens and place them in base contact with the unit leader. Question is, if a unit is force pushed, who sets where the objective token will be? The player who makes the force push move or the player who owns the unit? And it's responded with, hello, if a unit is moved as a result of the force push unit card or any movement, that unit's controlling player will place the objective token in base contact with the unit leader. This will not be the opposing player, not the one who uses force push, but the player who included the unit in their army. So when any movement happens and you replace a objective token, if that's your unit, no matter what effect happens, you place the objective token, no matter what.
So to be clear, what changed here versus how it was before, how it's been before, isn't a change. It's not like the wording changed significantly when we went to the CRB. No. What's happened here is that this forum ruling is reinterpreting what controlling player means. So previously, if you did a force push with someone, you were controlling that unit during the force push. You were the controlling player. Now they are defining controlling player as the person who owns that unit. They are the controlling player. Whether they are making the move with them or not, they are still the controlling player. That is what has changed here.
Yeah. So like in previous times, how like someone can use force push, they can move the objective token in base contact with their force user, and then cohesion happens. Now what happens is you move the unit leader, cohesion happens, and then
cohesion would always happen first. It's just about who places that token,
That's fair.
right?
That's fair.
So before, the best example, the two main places this comes in are hostage and recover, where one of the reasons Jedi were pretty good, at this objective, especially ones who had force choke, is that they could force push someone towards them, place the objective token next to their own, next to the Jedi, kill the unit, force choke the leader, whatever, make them drop the token, and then you are right there already, so you can just claim it.
Yeah.
And now you can't do that because you can force push them in, and outside of very, very special circumstances, you're not going to be able to force them to place it in base contact with you.
Correct. Yeah,
which means that even if you choke them, chop them in half, that you still have to then move up to that fort and then claim, so you're going to not waste, but it's going to take more actions. You're not going to be able to do it that turn because it's extra actions. Someone from the opposing army could come and claim it again and just basically keep running away with it. So it's a pretty big change.
It is.
Force users
a big
could
change.
still force push you close, cohere you, and then move into base contact with the unit leader and the objective. That still works, but it's a little clunky here.
It is.
It's a little more niche.
Yeah, we're not saying this is. I want to say this is a huge nerf to Force users. I think Force users just have to work around this a little bit more. It's not necessarily like I still think Force users are like the best in the game, but
yeah, it's I don't want to overhype this change, but I think obviously the fact that we're talking about it, I think is like we want to highlight it because it is an important change. Because it does, it's continuing to chip away at Force users, right? The deflect change,
vigilance going up,
like there's just a
speed
whole
going
lot.
up. Yeah,
But even deflect, it's not really indirect, but like this one's kind of an indirect, but it does hurt Jedi, and it's just chipping away at the Jedi, and. When you think about it, what makes Jedi, worth the 200 points isn't usually that they're just killing machines, right?
Yeah, not really.
You could get 3 pike units for, not 3 pike units. You could get like 2 fully loaded pike units for the cost of a Force user, and they'll do a lot of killing.
User. Yeah, a cheap Force user for sure.
You can kill stuff. Force users are there to do tricks like this, right? That's where they get a lot of their power from, and the erosion of that slowly, I don't think we're there yet, but if it keeps happening, like there's going to be a cliff that they just fall over, right? And then it's just, why am I bothering? So obviously Force users are very, very good, so it's not like a little nerf to them is going to be the worst thing in the world. They're still very good. They're in a lot of lists. But I think we have to make, if Force users are going to continue to be viable in the game, they can't lose everything that makes them special. Otherwise, there's no point in spending 200 points on a Force user.
It's true.
It's just not going to be worth it.
Yeah.
And when you look at after the objective change, the objective deck is already kind of weird with how blue player and red player changed and who wins tiebreakers. And the objectives were not really built for that. So it's... Those hostage and recover were like a couple ones where you could actually, feel good, take a Jedi and feel good. Now it's just weird, because now they feel kind of different. A lot of stuff's changing, and it'll take some time to settle out. Maybe it will be nothing, but I think it's a little bit of something at least.
Yeah.
It's not just a choke issue too. Like a lot, it's big on the guys who had choke, like your Op Vaders.
Yep.
But Yoda would still love to force push you in and chop you up and then take your token, right? Like light side guys love it too. I've been doing that a bunch in my Yoda, Obi list for ladder because I played recover both games, and that trick was important. So I guess cheater, we all found out retroactively. That I was cheating my way to victory
cheating.
once again.
Man.
Yeah.
Any other? Okay, so that's kind of the facts of how that ruling affects. Now there's other, I want to say, feelings that we have regarding this whole situation.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Share a little bit of that.
I got a little tilted. Right before, this is fresh, right before recording, because I was going to pull up this ruling, which again, if you want to read it, is called Force Push and Claimed Objectives on the forum from May 15th. Force Push and Claimed Objectives. Now, there was a follow-up to this because people said, wait a second, if that's what controlling means, then there's an interesting case with displace, because what displace says is that the opponent of whoever's controlling the unit that displaces other units, the opponent of that controlling player gets to do the replacing of the displaced guys, right? Which, if you can't follow me, think of this example. Seth and I are playing. Seth has some dewbacks for whatever reason, and I force push his dewbacks over his stormtroopers. Before, I was the controlling player of that dewback, and therefore, he was my opponent, so he gets to replace his stormtroopers, under the old rules. Under the new interpretation of controlling player, as the precedent was set on force push and claimed objectives, he is still the controlling player, and I am his opponent, so I would get to place his stormtroopers. If you follow the logic, the precedent that AMG has set as far as what they have now interpreted controlling to mean. And then they came out with a forum ruling, because someone asked this on the forum and said, hey, well then, this is how this works. And they basically said, nah, it works the same way as before. This will be made, the meme phrase that everyone loves, this will be made more clear in a future update.
Yes.
Right? So essentially they just said, yeah, that thing we just said about controlling, forget about it, but basically we didn't think this through. It's clear the thing that concerns me isn't the change, isn't the nerf to force users.
Because like as we said,
it is what it is. It's a bit of a tweak, but I don't want to overreact. To me, the big concern is it doesn't seem it's a bit of chaos is what I'm seeing. They redefined controlling without really thinking about what that meant. So either they always had these ideas and they really butchered implementing it into the CRB because they were not consistent in how they defined controlling, or they just decided, hey, this is how it should work, redefined something, and then, oh shoot, now that we've redefined it, this other thing happened, right? And controlling always meant this other thing. That's why we've been playing it wrong for however long, 4 months since the CRB dropped. Yeah. And this isn't the first thing. Remember, when the CRB dropped and someone said, hey, what are green tokens? We got a forum ruling saying, hey, green tokens include a standby. And then a few days later, we got a forum ruling saying, never mind, or the new CRB said green tokens do not include standbys. So clearly, there's disconnects happening all over the place. Yeah. And how I really feel for the playtesters, because I think unfairly people give them crap. And look, it's a hard thing being a playtester, right? And I would never blame my policy, never blame the playtesters, right? They're doing what they can.
Yep.
It's an impossible position to be in when if LJ, the guy who said green tokens include standbys, if he doesn't know that now the intention is they don't, there's no way the playtesters would know that. There's no way all the playtesters know and can actually playtest and test that change. Similarly, they're using controlling in multiple different ways, changing it but not changing it. How are you supposed to playtest this to get a balanced game, right? And, the forums are just redoing rules left, right, and center. It's frustrating, and it's really hard as a player because, obviously things changed, and we're trying to forget old Legion and reorient ourselves to new Legion. But even new Legion is not self-coherent. It's not consistent with itself.
Yeah, it keeps changing every rule, almost every rules form.
Yeah, and it feels. And it just feels a lot like they're flying with their by the seat of their pants and just going and that just concerns me a lot, right?
Yeah.
That has me worried. I don't want to be alarmist, but I think, it happened, just those couple examples. Maybe it's only those two. Maybe there are more. I'm not going to comb through everything again and dig up old or whatever the expression is, but it's you can't turn around and say we tested all these changes and we tested all these changes, these have been well thought through, because clearly that can't be the case.
Yeah,
things are changing all the time, and there's no way that everyone is on the same page and knows what they're testing and what is actually going on. And yeah, that's very concerning. So again, this is not me getting mad that I can't do weird stuff on recover the supplies with force push. This is a lot of the rules are still a mess. It's still a mess. And the thing is, we don't know when the next big thing that's just going to change like that.
We don't.
In a forum post ruling. That's the other thing. In a forum post ruling.
Which we'll talk about in our future conversation after the break.
Yeah.
In local metas.
Local metas, indeed. So,
yes.
I tried to restrain myself. Hopefully, I didn't say anything too
controversial. No,
controversial or hurtful to anyone. Again, not an attack on playtesters. I think they're in an impossible position. You couldn't test this if it's not a clear baseline of how things function. You just can't test properly.
Yeah,
but that's what I want to say. I'm glad I found that, just because now I know for future games that particular interaction still works that way, even though other things have changed. But
yeah.
Now I'm processing it still.
Yes.
But that's my rant. I think did I stay within your 7-minute time limit for me?
You went a little over, but that's okay.
Okay.
That's okay. Yeah. Again, just to reiterate, we're not don't feel us as salty people because of like one.
Hey, whatever, you can
change.
call me salty.
Call us salty.
Call me whatever you want. Yeah.
About a specific rule change. That's not the reason. It's more of just like, hey, this is just an observation we're making about some things we're seeing, just like between the form rulings and the CRB and everything, and it's not everything's lining up as it should be. Especially because like in a miniature game like this, words matter a lot, and like how you interpret words matter, and it seems like the interpretation of specific words are getting lost or changed, and that's affecting multiple different areas of the game.
Yeah, and when you change wordings, there is a cascading effect. It is you gotta know what you're doing when you're doing that. When you change what a word means, because that word is gonna show up in other places.
It is.
There's going to be a trickle down effect.
It's true. Well, with that,
oh man, I said I wouldn't get political, and then I mentioned the trickle down effect.
It's okay.
Oh no! Oh dear! No. Now we got controversial.
Oh man. Well, with that, we're gonna take a break, and we'll see you after our sponsors.
Today's episode is brought to you by SabacStars.net. Play Sabacc online against real people and win big cash. But know your limit and stay within it. Don't stake a VCX 100 you don't have. In too deep? Call 1-800 These Are Not the Cards You're Looking For to get help.
So welcome back. And as we teased before the break, we want to talk a little bit about local metas versus, the larger metas. Usually when you see people talking on Discord or whatever, about the meta, usually we're looking at, what would we expect to see at Invader League, at Adepticon, the big stuff. And we've got a competitive season that's ramping into full gear here, where you're going to have a lot of store championships that are, competitive, but maybe 16 players, maybe, 20 players. And when you get down to those more local metas, you can get things that look very different than the big Adepticons and Invader Leagues of the world. So we just kind of want to talk through that as far as, for me, it's because it's something I'm thinking about. How am I going to approach these, Worlds Qualifier store championships? Am I going to be approaching them a bit differently with a different mindset than Adepticon? So I'll pose that question to you, Seth. Are you going to go in with a different mindset? What are you considering for local versus the big stuff?
So I'm kind of... what I see is different locally than I see larger. Of course, my local scene is very competitive, especially when I get just the overarching Oklahoma scene. Like, it gets very competitive. So you will see like a Double Dark list or like a Blizzard Force list. Like, you'll see those every so often and occasionally. But I am kind of under the impression that I like to build a list solid that will pretty much no matter what list it'll come across, it can handle that, whether it be like an Adepticon or whether it be like in a local meta. And in local metas, you see a lot of jank lists. I see a lot more like double airspeeder lists. I don't see that a lot in like global metas, even though I think it's a really good list. I've even seen Fluttercrafts. I saw your head during the double airspeeder.
Rebel players always say T-47s are the answer, and I'm very skeptical. I'm always very skeptical.
They're not.
But that's beside the point.
Yeah, that's beside this point. And we mentioned this a little bit before, but like see a little bit more armor locally because everyone just honestly, a lot of people, especially in your local tournaments, like they just want to play like what they just recently painted, what they feel like is best painted. They're not like, oh, I don't want to go bring the biggest list, like the best list in the world. They're like, oh, I just freshly painted this army. Like I want to bring this. Just because like they think it's look cool. So you'll see like I'm personally like I'm probably not gonna bring like a double dark list just because I feel like you would see a lot more impact in like those jank lists, different unique local meta lists than you see like in a global list.
And then there's just some weird stuff.
There is,
right?
yeah.
Because a lot of the time when we talk about certain lists, when you're looking at your 2-3 day event, you're looking at, hey, can I win 6, 9, 10 rounds in a row with this list? And at a local store championship, honestly, a lot of them, even with 16 players, they might just be 3 rounds because that's what you can fit in a single day.
Yep.
3-4 rounds. So once that threshold is lowered to, hey, I only have to win 3 rounds, then a whole lot of stuff becomes viable.
Yeah.
Right? Because the chances of just getting, boned by variants over the course of a 9-round event, well, over 3 rounds, you can go 3 rounds and not have the bottom drop out. Right? So that opens up list building a lot. It's kind of weird because I feel like in a local meta, you're probably going to see less of the top meta stuff, right?
Yeah.
People are going to be a little less... Generally, people are going to be a bit more set in they run what they run, which means you're going to see maybe a bit better spread of factions. Competitively, recently, we've seen a lot of the red safe factions, Empire and Gar. But I think locally, you're going to see more of that Rebels, CIS. You're going to see more of those white saves, a better faction distribution. But also, you're going to see less Blizzard and Double Darks, right? Not to say you won't see it. You might still have a couple, but it's probably not going to be at the same proportion as in a really big competitive tournament that people are traveling to.
Yeah, I also want to touch base, like you may see like, because you have those people that, oh, this just won the world tournament or something, or just won Adepticon, and they bring that list, but it's not the same skill level, unless they're just like really good. I don't know what your local meta has. So you're like, you can still handle those lists like a Blizzard Force list in the hands of like a normal average player. For
sure. There's a big difference of if I'm preparing for a tournament and I'm like, man, I have to beat Kyle Dornboss running Blizzard Force. That's a very different calculation than I have to beat a pretty good local player running Blizzard Force.
No
right?
names.
Because most locals don't have Kyle in them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
A lot of locals aren't going to have anyone close to Kyle because he's that good, right? And then, so that is going to change things when you're looking at local meta. So that's a really good point. So it's kind of weird in a sense. You can almost say, hey, if I think there's going to be a less proportion of those lists, and maybe I'm not as scared of them as I would be in the hands of some other players, I can just kind of not worry about them as much. But then maybe if they're done well, your chances, because it's a smaller pool, your chances of dodging something and having someone else do your dirty work for you also goes down. So I might not plan for double darks because one of 16 players is going to run double darks. But then if I get to the finals, there might be a pretty good chance that player is running double darks.
Yeah.
Right? But at the same time, if I'm a double darks player, let's say, when I went to Worlds, my strategy was, hey, if I run into a 6 HH12 list on day 1, I can take the loss on day 1 because 2 1s make the cut. And then day 2, I'm hoping that those lists got weeded out by other lists because they're less effective into non-darks. In a local event, I can't afford a 1 loss. You're probably going to have to go X and O, and maybe even win tiebreakers to win a local event, just because the number of rounds isn't going to be enough to do cuts and all that for most store championship events. And then, again, if a couple people have an impact skew, your chances of facing them go way up when the field is 16 versus 128. right? So it's different math, and it's cool. It's a different puzzle to solve. So as you started out with, you want a flexible list that can take on a lot of stuff. All-rounders are going to be really good for you in a local.
They are. But sometimes I've also seen that really niche lists have done really well, just because like
big skews
just really don't like. I know I have a Han Tauntaun list that did really well in a local tournament that I had a few months ago. That I was I personally would not expect this to do well, but it did. I've even seen I think it was the last one I went to was like an Obi-Wan list, like went really well. And just went 3-0. I was like, shoot, come on, but like in a thing like a Gen Con or Adepticon, like that's not gonna go. That may go like 3-0 like day one or something, but like it's not gonna like last the whole.
It's probably not gonna go 6-0. It might go 5-1, which is great, but it's not enough. And I think too, one of the big things that you see across different metas is knowing kind of the activation counts. I feel like that can change.
Yeah, that's true.
We're talking like very localized metas, but if you bring it out a bit, from what I've seen and what I understand, something like the UK has a much lower activation count.
Especially, with the pass changes coming out. Yeah.
Yeah. So like you see, Dave Grant, Lila Claire, like 6-8 activation lists. Not everyone's going to be running that over there, but somewhere like that, they might have a lower activation count where you're condensing your forces and having fewer but tougher units versus more but less, but a bit more flimsy. So knowing the activation count, you're probably going to see a lot more 9-act lists locally.
It's true.
Which maybe gives you more confidence that, hey, I can go to 9 acts or 8 acts and it'll be okay. Or maybe it makes you say, hey, you know what? I really want to push for a 12-act list with my double air speeders, because then I can get like last. Like I just have a whole lot of activations up on them.
Yeah.
So I think because of this, I don't know if I can give any really straightforward, solid advice other than just get a feel for what people like it to run. Don't hard meta into something too hard.
Don't do that. Don't be that person.
Or don't be like, hey, this one player, the best player in our local, he likes to run X, so I'm gonna build a counter list to that, because you still have to beat everyone else.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Keep it in mind, because you want to make sure you have some tech, but like that's what it is. It's tech. Don't skew your whole list to beat one archetype.
Yeah. I would also like to add that I've noticed kind of at least in my area, they've been like, I was playing with one of the top players in the local down in Oklahoma City, where we were playing a game. We were both 2-0 and we were playing in the finals pretty much. And he was like, we were playing Sabotage the Moisture Evaporators on advanced positions, and I had the advantage as the red player. So I made him come to me, and he made the comment and was like, man, this is the first time I've played like a play style like you, because you play conservative, because everyone, like specifically my local, they want to move up and just shoot. Like their whole goal is just to shoot, and like do a lot of gun lines and just stand and shoot, aim and shoot, but try to take out as much dudes. Where I'm not that play style. I'm like, I'm just gonna play the objective, and that's all I'm doing, So he was like, that's a totally different play style. So each like local meta has different play styles, to where like, oh, you'll see a lot more gun lines, you'll see a lot more. I feel like you won't see a ton of objective players.
I think you see. Yeah, no, I would agree.
But that's a little bit more rare of a player just playing the objective. I know, because it kind of feels good just to like roll a lot of dice and just take off models on the board. Like it just feels good, So
pew pew.
Pew pew indeed. So like local players have those, local metas have those play styles, but like in the global side of things, like you need to have a plan for all the play styles.
And I think that's a really cool point, because, let's say I'm traveling, I'm going to drive 6 hours to a place I don't usually play in to play this store championship. I might not be able to get a feel. I could ask them, hey guys, what do you guys usually like to play? They're probably going to say, no, we're not telling you, buddy. Yeah. We like to play armor skews, and then they don't do that at all, right?
Yeah.
So I think in that circumstance, what I would do, I can only speak for myself, do what you know. Because you could have that exact same thing where it's like, hey, what you know best might be what they don't know at all.
That's true.
And then you can just show up and you know it. Having that knowledge and that practice advantage is big when it comes to things like how a list works, the interactions in it. Maybe they haven't seen an interaction before, like pull the strings to get your Commander Vader disembarked out of your Gav tank after it double moved. Or maybe they haven't seen your playstyle, a conservative playstyle or a all about the objective playstyle.
Yeah.
Or maybe they just haven't really seen those objectives, right? I think there's probably some metas that play a lot of bombing run breakthrough. And then there's probably a lot of metas that don't see that. And then it's like, oh no, I have to play these. I don't want to do that. I haven't played this in like 6 months. I've played it 3 times in the whole of Legion. So, doing what you know's best will often give you an advantage and can make up for some shortcomings in list building.
Yeah.
The game isn't going to be decided, in almost all cases, it's not going to be decided by your list building. So don't get too hung up in that. Focus a lot on making sure you know what you're doing and that you can execute that to the best of your ability.
Yeah. Play to your strengths, not your opponent's weaknesses, is what I would say on that. I think that's just a good key just for the game in general I know Matt does this a lot. I do this a lot. It's just playing to our own strengths, whether it be like your objective deck, your like turn 0 to, list building is like you always just play to your strengths, and because you yourself. Of course, like if a new unit comes out or like you get a new faction, like try it out, like get into it, dive into it, and learn it. And I think that'll also help you in the long way, because I know Matt, he learned, I think he played like every faction, like almost won a tournament with every faction except Gar.
Close. Yeah, so I might try Gar at some store champs until I can get that off my table.
But learning those different factions I think also helps you in the local scene and in the global scene as well.
Yeah. Legion just generally, my philosophy on Legion, how I come to it, I think it's a lot about capitalizing on the mistakes your opponents make.
Yep.
Right? Everyone's gonna make mistakes. Whether it's, guy at your local, or again, to say him again, your Luke Cooks, your Kyle Dornbosses, like they're gonna make mistakes.
Everyone makes mistakes,
I've
especially
seen it,
IRL.
and I've made
like
mistakes. If you know your list, you're gonna minimize your mistakes, right? You're gonna minimize your mistakes, and you might know better how you can attack. Take advantage of your opponents, rather than I have maybe a better list for this matchup, but I'm not as used to it. I'm going to make a mistake that they can capitalize on, or I don't quite know how to capitalize. Even though the math is better for me, I don't really know, hey, they've done this. Here's how I can attack that.
Yeah.
So that's just general Legion philosophy. For me, it's about attacking your opponent's mistakes and minimizing your own. So knowing your what you're doing helps a lot with that.
That's good. It's good.
Yeah.
I think that wraps up our conversation.
I think that's it. It's a nice quick one. Back to old school generals. A nice half-hour episode for the folks.
Absolutely. So we're still waiting on the points update. Hopefully, we'll see some spicy changes there. I love change. I think it's a good thing for the game.
Oh, it's great for the game. I'm hoping it happens, because then I can try something. Walk into the Wild West, and maybe it won't be a situation. We just talked about know your own stuff. Maybe it'll be a situation the change just happened and no one knows anything, and those are fun situations too.
Always.
Yeah. Yeah. And as we say, like we haven't had guests or tournament recaps for a while. Tournament season is getting into full swing. We've got a lot that we're going to try to hit up in the next, not hit up as in go to necessarily, but get people on, talk about it. So we kind of want to, at least from my perspective, over the course of the summer, I want to see how this meta grows and evolves and what kind of things are doing well, what the next big thing might be. So a lot of interesting stuff coming. It's going to be a fun summer.
It will. It'll be a fun summer. So stay tuned. Stay Gungan.
This has been the Bombad Generals.
Listening to Bombad Generals is not scientifically proven to make you a better Legion player. Side effects may include bad dice rolls, missed triggers, game losses, bankruptcy, divorce, vomiting, and sudden death. Ask your doctor if Bombad Generals is right for you.